Hello, welcome. It's time for my May wrap up. Welcome back to my channel. I am so excited because it's June and it's a new reading month, but that also means we have to do a May wrap up. In May, I read 6 books total. I read 2 physically, 3 on my Kobo e-reader, and 1 audiobook. Let's get started on the wrap up. So first off, we have Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. I was reading this in my book club that I host over on Fable. The book club is called Library of Curiosities, and this was actually the book we were reading in April. However, I did not finish it, mainly because I was struggling with it a little bit. I wasn't getting into it right away. I really didn't like the main character, Max. However, I love Gothic classic, so I wanted to stick it through. I know a lot of people love this book, and honestly, once the book started to get more twisty and things started to become more eerie and intense is when my attention was caught, and this was well past halfway into the book. However, I really did enjoy it afterwards. The criticisms I would have of it was the racism. So trigger warning, just warning in general for racism in this book. I mean, it was written quite a long time ago, the publishing date being 1938 was when it was first published. So it's unsurprising that there would be racism, but it's more than once. It's quite a few times. Be wary of that. And yeah, it was really just the racism and the pacing issue, which was the problem for me. And I just really wasn't into Max as the love interest at all. Like, even towards the end of the book, I wasn't sold on him. I feel like this was queer coded as well. And once I looked into the author's background, I feel like it became more apparent that it is queer coded, especially with Mrs. Danvers and Rebecca. If you've read this book and you've gotten to the end of the book, you know what happens. I just wanted, like, the entire time, honestly, to be reading a book about Miss Danvers and Rebecca and their backstories more than I wanted, like, anything from the main character and Max. But overall, I had a good time. I had a good time, especially in the second half, so I gave it a 4.25 out of 5 stars. Next, I read Open Water by Caleb Bazuma Nelson. This was actually in my first ever vlog that I filmed, where I tackled 5 potential highly anticipated 5-star reads, and I ended up giving this book a 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was so beautifully written and so poetic. I had such a great time reading it. It felt very realistic in the way that the characters were explored. For example, the main character being an artist. This was explored very realistically to what artists actually do and experience every day, and the consuming of different art and different media throughout the book was very enjoyable. I believe there exists a playlist somewhere of all the songs mentioned in the book, which adds another layer to the experience of reading it, so I'd love to reread it at some point while listening to the music and maybe consuming the media as well. That he discusses. It was also just such a devastating exploration of the black male experience, which I haven't read from as much as I would like to. So that's something I definitely want to continue to explore. There was an exploration of racial profiling, living in constant fear and trauma from those experiences, and how that affects personal relationships. And going into this book, I genuinely thought it was just a literary romance. I thought the focus would be just this romance that he has with another character who is also an artist, but it turned out to be such a layered story haven't stopped thinking about this book since I finished it, and I definitely want to read more of Caleb's work. I would highly recommend this book. I would highly, highly recommend it. It's also not a very long read either, which was very impressive for the amount of things the book actually covers and how in-depth it really felt on the different themes that it was exploring. It just blows my mind when people are able to cover so many different topics in such a beautiful, nuanced way. Yeah, I'm just so impressed by this, and I think there is a possibility of this being a 5-star down the line. I do tend to change the ratings I give for books. Then I read I Who Have Never Known Men. This was also part of the same vlog where I read my 5-star anticipated reads. This was haunting, ambiguous, beautiful, heartbreaking in its exploration of just human nature. I cannot stop thinking about this book. I think this might be one of my favorite books of the year, and I have quite a few. Like, I'm surprised at how many 5-star reads I have this year, but I think I'm finally nailing down the types of books that I enjoy reading, and so I've been more picky, and my reading experience has been so great. I gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars, if you can't already guess. It is not a book makes sense to read if you are someone who needs a plot, who needs their questions answered throughout the story. You need those things to be interested in a story. This is not the book for you. If you're here for the vibes, for the conversation, for the philosophy, for this very innovative way of exploring human nature, this is the novel for you, okay? This is like so up my alley. I love books that are ambiguous and make you question so many different things. Like, I was just blown away by how this was written. I had so many quotes written down afterward. Definitely feel like this is one of those books that I'm gonna reread in the future, which is really exciting. I know that there's gonna be things in it that I didn't pick up on before, and I'm very excited to explore that further. It left me speechless. It also, after I read it, I had very, very weird dreams. I was feeling existential and I was just devastated. Like, this book hurt me to my core, but also just blew my mind at the same time. It was just phenomenal, and I highly recommend this book. I know most of you have probably seen it make its rounds on TikTok and YouTube, and rightfully so. It's a phenomenal book. Next, we read Giovanni's Room. This was the last... Oh, let me adjust. This is the last book that I read for that specific 5-star anticipated read video, and this was so fun to read, but also was just as devastating as the other 2 books that I read. If you can't already tell, I love a devastating book. I guess I should probably question why that is, but that's for another day. This was so beautifully written, set in Paris. I absolutely love this. James Baldwin's writing, like, phenomenal, beautiful. The only beef I had was with David, our main character. I could not get down with any of the choices he was making. If you need a character to be nice or well-rounded, this is not it for you. But if you can handle several morally gray characters, this is a great exploration of that. It's very multi-layered. The character study in this is phenomenal. The exploration on sexuality is phenomenal in this as well. And this was just a monumental piece of queer literature in 1956. And I had to keep reminding myself that this was written in 1956. Like, I couldn't, process that. So much of what David goes through in this book is very still prevalent today, but there are some aspects of the book that do feel aged, but that's like any classic, really. And I loved this. I would read it again. This is also another book I would recommend as a summer read, especially because of the setting. Yeah, this was my first James Baldwin. I don't know why I waited so long to read James Baldwin. I highly recommend this book if you want beautiful writing and want your heart broken. Justice for Giovanni. Justice for Giovanni. Next, I listened to on audiobook was The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V. Schwab. This was recommended to me by my friend Aya, and I have mixed feelings about this, primarily because I listened to it on audiobook and I should have just stopped when I realized I didn't like the narrator's style. I haven't explored romantasy as a genre a whole lot, so this was still relatively new to me. I really enjoyed the first half of the book. The second half was a little slow to me, and it felt like it could have been wrapped up, like it felt like it was a little bit repetitive. However, I did enjoy it. It's just next time, because I do plan on rereading this, I will be doing it with a physical copy so that I can not hear those voices in my head. I just really didn't love the voice acting, and that's just a me thing. It really is, and that can also just make or break a book for you. So I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars. However, that can change in the future. I still enjoyed it. I still had a good time. But just a reminder, if you're not vibing with an audiobook, don't continue it. Don't force yourself. Don't do it. It's not worth it. Last but not least, I read on my e-reader Kitchen by Banana Yoshimoto. I've wanted to read something by Banana for a while. This was written in 1988. The issues that I had with the book, I'm starting with the issues right away. The issues I had with the book were the way the trans characters were represented within the book. The book actually consisted of 2 short stories, the main story being the one that I had issues with when it came to trans representation, and I think really it's because it was written in 1988. It kind of took me out of the story. There was a secondary short story at the end that I liked better, which was called Moonlight Shadow. And both stories ended up dealing with grief as the main topic. And regardless of how I feel about the representation in the novel, the writing was very whimsical. It was really fun. It was very heartbreaking and heartwarming at the same time. So I did enjoy this. I gave it a 3.5 out of 5 stars, but I was expecting to really, really love it. Yeah, so that's how I felt about that. I do want to read more from Banana Yoshimoto, and hopefully I like their other books more. Well, we shall see. I also realized that this could also be a problem with translation, which I've seen people mention, so yeah, there's that. Thank you so much for sticking around to the end for my May wrap up. If you want to support me, there's links down below, and I'll see you guys soon for my June TBR. Thanks for watching. Happy reading! Bye!